Sunday GUNDAY. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today we're taking a look at a gun that I've shot on the channel before, hidden in an old vlog somewhere, but I never really gave it the proper Sunday GUNDAY spotlight that I feel like it deserves. This is another one coming in on the cheaper side of the pistol spectrum, but that does not mean that this thing is a slouch. The gun in question today is the Kel-Tec PMR30. The PMR30 is a full-size lightweight pistol chambered in .22 Magnum. The words full-size are going to be used loosely in this review because while the gun fits footprints of other full-size guns, it is unusually slim and weighs in at only 13.6 ounces while unloaded. That lightweight number is partly due to the glass-reinforced nylon known as Zytel that a majority of this gun is constructed out of. The slide and barrel are of course made of steel, but since .22 is a small caliber, the weight added by those components is pretty minimal. The rear of the slide is polymer, which houses these long fiber optic sights which suck in a ton of light, making the picture super bright. The red rears are coupled with a green front post, and I can already tell you that I am a big fan of these sights. The PMR30 actually gets the number in its name from its magazine capacity. This thing loaded up to the max gives you a ton of rounds to work with, giving you more time shooting and less time reloading, unless of course you live in one of those states. There are a lot of unique features to this gun, but most importantly is the hybrid blowback system. Kel-Tec designed the PMR so the barrel can float forward and backward a small amount in the frame without a mechanical locking system. When a round is fired, the case of the round forms to the chamber, and if the pressure is high enough, the friction generated will cause the barrel to recoil with the slide until pressure drops before ejecting the spent casing. If the pressure is lower, the barrel will stay in place and function as expected, and because of this design, the PMR30 should have no issues firing a wide variety of ammo types. So those are just a few points that make this gun pretty damn cool in my eyes. Like I said, I've shot one in the past and I've been itching to shoot one again ever since, so let's get out there, run a full 30 round mag, and then come back for a first impression. Alright guys, back for my first mag impression of the PMR30. I'll tell you right off the bat that I'm a big fan of this package in its entirety. The .22 Magnum rounds that this thing shoots is such a cool little round. It's relatively inexpensive, a little bit more expensive than .22 long rifle, but it is a lot longer, a bit more recoil, and it shoots fireballs when coming out of a shorter barrel like this. That just kind of adds to the whole cool factor of shooting this thing. Now I guess I will start with the obvious, the things that people typically say when they first get their hands on this gun. First of all, you'll pick it up off the table and go, wow, that is super light. And it is, like I said, just under 14 ounces. This thing is super lightweight thanks to all the Zytel in here, the very small slide, and then the polymer on the rear. And then the second thing that people typically say is, wow, that's really awkward to hold in your hand as well. Overall, the gun is very slim, and if you look at the front of the grip here, that is the slimmest portion of the gun, and then it widens out a little bit in the rear, but the actual width across where you're gripping it, it's very wide, and that is because, obviously, of the magazines and the round that it shoots. .22 Magnum rounds are pretty long. And because of that kind of weird design, how slim but wide this grip is, it almost feels like you're holding on to a 1x2 or a 1x3. My hands are on the larger side, so it doesn't feel that weird to me, but for someone with very short fingers or smaller hands, it might be kind of awkward getting your hand wrapped around this oddly shaped grip. It of course has the same Kel-Tec texturing that they put on pretty much all of their guns. Here is the grip on my sub 2000 as it's all folded up. As you can see, the PMR has the same waffle type of texture. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It really doesn't bother me that much. If my hands are wet or muddy or anything like that, it might be a little hard to hold on to, but at the same time, the gun is super light, doesn't recoil a whole lot because of the rounds that it shoots. And then once I get into the purpose of use that this gun was basically designed for, then you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. The sight picture, like I said in the beginning, I am a very big fan of. These fiber optics on top are super long and suck in any kind of ambient light out here. No matter where I'm at, like in the shade right now, or if I'm standing out in the sun on the range, this thing is just sucking in light from everywhere and they are super bright. Here's a quick picture of the rear sight. As you can see, it almost looks like they are glowing, like battery powered glowing. And then the front sight posts up here, basically the same exact thing. They really look like they're battery powered because of how much light they're sucking in. When putting a round in the chamber on this gun, it may be a little bit awkward at first, especially if the gun is not broken in yet, which this one is not. You just saw the first couple of rounds go through this. So at first it was a little stiff, but I've been dry firing this thing for a couple weeks now, just itching to shoot it, and it's already loosening up pretty well. To rack this slide, you really only have this little bit of polymer in the back here to hold on to. There's good serrations, if you want to call them that. It's basically just the molded polymer. You kind of have to pinch a little bit, but obviously the recoil spring in here is not super tough, so it is fairly easy to get your hand on there and put one in the chamber. This gun does come standard with an ambidextrous safety, which you can find on both sides of the firearm. This is also a feature that is very important once we get into what this gun was actually designed for. There's a nice long rail up front. You could mount pretty much any kind of light on there. You could even mount a very large light like a Surefire X300 or a TLR1HL. I don't think I will ever put anything on this rail just because I really appreciate how light this overall package is to begin with. While I'm speaking of the accessories, you may have noticed these 4 little screws on top of the polymer slide here. The way these guns come, you can actually mount an optic on here. If you really wanted to, you could put something like an RMR on top. Again, that's something that I probably won't do. And they're also very specific about the weights and what types of optics you do put on here. Any more weight added to the slide is obviously going to change the way that this thing is reliability-wise. And like I said, I like this gun the way it comes, so I probably won't be changing anything about it. Another sort of weird or unique feature is the magazine release on this thing. It actually is in the back heel of the gun. There are a few guns that use this design. I'm not really for or against it in any way. I think one pro would be that if you do not have a magazine release up here, there's no way you're accidentally going to press that. It would be very hard to accidentally press the magazine button on this thing. Maybe if you have massive hands and you're gripping the gun very low and you're squeezing super tight, it might accidentally fall out. I really don't think that's an issue though. This is not a gun that you're going to be doing any kind of like speed reloads. You have 30 rounds. I mean, how fast do you really have to reload this gun? Now getting into the design or the purpose of this gun, basically it's for target shooting and maybe it could fill a role of a backpack gun or a small game type of gun. I personally bought this gun because I've shot one in the past, like I said, and it is a blast to shoot, so I bought this gun 100% for fun out here at the range, shooting steel targets. This thing is a blast. Maybe if I'm going hiking and I want to throw it in a small day pack like my Vertex Transit that you saw in the beginning, I could simply throw some water and snacks and EDC items in this bag, as well as a very light gun like this. Keep it nice and stowed away with the safety on, and then just go about my day like this, hiking or doing pretty much anything. Now, because this gun is chambered in 22 mag, I'm not going to recommend it as a self-defense weapon. Would I want to be shot with 22 mag? No, absolutely not, especially if the guy has 30 rounds of it. But this gun really wasn't designed for self-defense. There are plenty of other guns out there with different rounds, and ballistically they are probably going to be better than 22 Magnum. Could this gun be pressed into a roll to be used as an EDC self-defense weapon? Yeah, probably, but I would recommend going with something else, 380, 9mm, anything but 22. Now, one of the reasons why this safety is very important if you are going to be carrying this thing like in a backpack or just on a hike somewhere, the trigger on this gun. Keep in mind this is about a $300 to $400 gun, so fairly inexpensive. You would think the trigger would not be that great, but that's actually where you're wrong. If you have already shot one of these guns, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but I will save my thoughts and opinions on that trigger until we come back after shooting a couple more rounds. For the record, today I'm shooting some CCI A22 Magnum courtesy of the guys up at Schuylkill Gunworks. They are now on Instagram, so go give them a follow and tell them that I sent you. These rounds are coming out at 2,100 feet per second, so that should mean that I can be pretty accurate at distance. Let's head back to about 50 yards and see what this stuff can do. Had a failure to feed there. Let's try that again. Had another failure there. Looks like another failure to feed. That one really caught onto that casing, but at least it's pretty accurate. I think those two failures are due to these new magazines. They are very tough to load as they come right out of the box. It takes a lot of pressure to force them down in there, then you gotta tap them up against the butt of your palm. I don't think it has anything to do with the gun itself, so let's keep shooting and see what else happens. Let's walk it back to about 100 yards now. All right, we are way out here now. I'm not even sure if you guys are going to be able to hear my TA targets ringing at this distance. Let's see if I can even hit it first. Another failure to feed. I gotta take a closer look at this magazine. It's gonna be a little difficult to see, but the rounds are kind of bunching up in this magazine. I'm gonna go grab the other one and see if I have better luck with the other. Yeah, this other mag is way easier to load for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. They are both brand new, but I'm gonna load this one up all the way to the top, 30 rounds, so it'll have the most amount of pressure inside of it, and we'll just see if this thing runs any better. I honestly can't even tell if I'm hitting. All right, well, the gun is running, but like I said, I can't tell if I'm hitting out this far because it's such a small round and it doesn't make those targets ring to their full potential. This thing obviously isn't designed to shoot 100 yards like this, but it's always fun to test out how far you can actually take a gun. I'm gonna switch back to this sticky mag and see if I can make this thing run. Maybe it's just those rounds getting caught up. I don't know. Seems to be fine now though. Well, I'm almost out of ammo, but we still have time for a bonus mag. 30 rounds too. Woo-hoo-hoo, buddy. Alright guys, back for my final thoughts on the Kel-Tec PMR30. There are definitely some pros and cons to this gun. I think the pros outweigh the cons, so let's start there. The first con that comes to mind is simply those malfunctions that I had. Really not a huge deal though. It was definitely the magazine and the way the ammo was loaded into it. Like I said, these things are pretty tough to load when they are new. I've read other people have the same issue with the mags. But that was just one mag out of the 6 or 7 that I put down range, so really not a huge deal. Once these things break in, I think it will run no problem at all. And then another con may actually be the ergonomics. Definitely not the best feeling gun in my hand. Like I said, I have larger hands, so it's not too bad. It's very lightweight, which kind of offsets that. It's weird to hold on to, but the recoil is really not that bad, so it's very easy to transition in between targets. This is a very quick gun, both the way it cycles and just movement in general. Speaking of the recoil, we can move into the pros now. This thing recoils very, very flat, as you can imagine, because it is so lightweight and the slide is super minimal. For that whole mag dump there at the end, I can get a very nice sight picture out on target, press off around, and I'm still staring right at the same sight picture that I had from the start. The muzzle rise is almost non-existent if you can get a good purchase on the gun, and you can find your sight picture for follow-up shots very quickly. 30 round mags, huge plus. I would much rather spend time out on the range shooting rather than reloading 10 round mags or anything like that. The Picatinny rail is nice if you want to add any accessories. Again, with the top mounted red dot sight, if you want to put something on there, that's an option for you as well. But these sights are very nice, and like I said, I'm not changing anything on this gun. Now let's move on to this trigger, which is actually very impressive for a sub $400, sometimes $300 gun. The trigger has a slight curve to it, both up and down the face and then across the face itself. It is a very plasticky feeling trigger because it is some sort of plastic, but that actually does not mean that it is a bad thing. Here is the take up to the wall. As you can see, very minimal. I can pull it directly back there and it's very defined. And then it's a pretty light pull, I would say somewhere under 4 pounds. Back just a little bit, and you get a very nice crisp break. For something that feels this plasticky, I was expecting it to be a little bit mushy or maybe gritty at the same time, but it's really not that at all. I'll let it back out to the reset. You can feel it, you can kind of hear it, not the most tactile and audible trigger ever, but then again, you are right at the wall. Really no take up, you're right on top of that wall and then it breaks again. So this trigger on a sub $400 gun is actually very impressive. I think you would be hard pressed to find someone who has a complaint about this trigger, maybe other than it's kind of plasticky feeling and it might be too light for some people, but then again, you have the safety. I think this gun definitely fits very well into a small game hunting or backpacking type of role. And if you are going to be carrying this thing around in a backpack like my Vertex Transit Sling, I would definitely recommend keeping this safety on because it is very easy to pull a gun out of a bag like that and then accidentally muzzle yourself or anything like that. So I would recommend just playing it safe if you do have one of these guns. Definitely use the safety because this trigger pull is very light. But now for the main reason that I bought this gun is simply because it is such a fun gun to shoot. For target shooting, the ammo is relatively inexpensive. It is super lightweight and it would be fairly easy for new shooters to pick this thing up and shoot it decently well. It's not super hard to manipulate once the gun is broken in. This thing is very light to pull back. Maintenance at the same time is very easy. You can take this thing down just by pulling out this pin, field stripping it, oiling it up a bit, and then slapping it back together. The sights are nice, it holds 30 rounds, and I keep saying this, but it's about $350. I'm just a very big fan of this gun. It's a perfect gun to bring out to the range, have some fun shooting steel targets, and it basically encompasses everything that I like about firearms. I actually like this gun so much that I went out and bought another PMR30 just like this one to give away to one of you guys who support my channel over on Patreon. Now there's nothing specific that you have to do to enter this giveaway. If you are already supporting the channel over on Patreon, I really appreciate it, and this is just a small way that I can say thank you to you guys. So if you have been a Patreon for this month, I will be doing a live stream giveaway and you will find more details about that over on the site. You don't have to tune in to win. The only thing that you need to be is at least 21 years old and preferably in a state where you can have 30 round magazines. If you are not 21 and cannot legally own a firearm or the magazines that come with this gun, depending on what state you're in, then I will work out a sort of consolation prize and maybe we can work something else out in the future. So yeah, that's about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions on the PMR, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. If you like this video or this gun, I would appreciate if you left a like on it. It really doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but it really does help me out. Also, if you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week, and that's going to be all for today. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.